I'm Navi. Today, my partner and I will be debating the topic of the death penalty. The death penalty undermines the very purpose of our criminal justice system, which is to deter crime, rehabilitate convicts, and incapacitate hardened criminals. Philosophically speaking, life in prison serves these functions better than the death penalty, and life in prison allows for rehabilitation, whereas death is final. And with super maximum security prisons, escape is no longer a real possibility. So lifetime incarceration is a better alternative than the death penalty. Which leads me to our resolve, which is the death penalty should be abolished. Our first significant claim is that the death penalty is expensive and an inefficient use of resources. The American death penalty is slow, inconsistent, inefficient, that it costs far more than the life without parole alternative. The first procedure decides guilt or innocence, and the second weighs the proper punishment, and more procedures may occur if there are appeals to be made. This doubly burdensome process is followed by a strict appeal review that consumes hundreds, if not thousands, of billable hours on the part of lawyers, clerks, investigators, and judges. And compared to the cost of lifetime incarceration, a death penalty lawsuit is much more inefficient and extra cost. According to David Von Drell, who's the author of The Capital Punishment, The End of the Death Penalty, also an article published in the Times, when he examined the cost of Florida's death penalty, he concluded that seeing a death sentence through to execution costs at least 6 times as much as a life sentence. A more recent study by the Federal Commission pegged the difference in the cost of the trials as 8 times as much, and Duke University professor Philip J. Cook studied that North Carolina's system and concluded that North Carolina could save $11 million per year by abolishing the death penalty. California's system incurs excess costs, estimated at some $200 million per year. From Kansas to Maryland, Tennessee to Pennsylvania, studies have all reached similar conclusions. The Death Penalty Information Center revealed that California has spent over $4 billion since 1978 on death row inmates, as well as averaging about $200 million a year towards lawyers, expert witnesses, and super secure prisons to deal with death row inmates. Which our second significance claim is that the death penalty is racist, arbitrary, and particularly unfair to indigent or poor defendants. You are more likely to be sentenced if you are poor or belong to a racial minority, because poor and marginalized groups have less access to legal resources needed to defend themselves. The death penalty is prejudiced in that, according to the Death Penalty Information Center, cases with white defendants and black victims have only had 18 people executed, whereas cases with black defendants and white victims have had 253 people executed. Over 75% of the murder victims in cases resulting in execution were white, even though nationally only 50% of murder victims generally are white. And this is from the Death Penalty Information Center again. And the death penalty is arbitrary or random in that when someone in one county or state receives the death penalty, but someone who commits a comparable crime in another county or state is given a life sentence, it brings light to, there's no standardized process to what a death penalty should be brought upon and what crimes are deserving of the death penalty. So another reason why the death penalty is arbitrary is that the death penalty does not single out the worst offenders, but it selects groups based on factors like I said before, race or defense counsel and the county in which the crime was committed. In consistent years, according to the 2016 FBI Uniform Crime Report, it showed that the South had the highest murder rate, and the South accounts for over 80% of the executions. Meanwhile, while the Northeast, which has less than 1% of all executions, has the lowest murder rate. And that also segues into my next significance claim, which is the death penalty doesn't deter crime. Moreover, now you don't need the death penalty to deter crime because most states now have sentence of life without parole. And prisoners who are given the sentence will never be released, so the safety of society can be assured without using the death penalty. My last significance claim is that the death penalty is immoral. According to the Administrative Committee of the United States, we cannot overcome crime simply by executing criminals, nor can we restore the lives of the innocent by ending lives of those convicted of the murderers. The death penalty offers a tragic illusion that we can define life by taking life. The death penalty also is immoral because it executes innocents. Per Amnesty International, the risk of executing an innocent person can never be eliminated. More than 150 people have been sent to death row in the U.S., have later been exonerated, meaning they've been taken off death row, and others have been executed despite serious doubt of their guilt. From Gerald Cogan, the former Florida Supreme Court Chief Justice, he gave a speech in Orlando, Florida in 2000, and he said, I quote, "There's no question in my mind, and I can tell you, having seen the dynamics of our criminal justice system over the many years that I've been associated with it, as prosecutor, defense attorney, and Supreme Court justice, that convinces me that we certainly have in the past executed those who either didn't fit the criteria for execution in the state of Florida, or who, in fact, were factually not guilty of the crime for which they had been committed." And this is coming from a former Supreme Court justice. From the National Academy of Sciences, reported that at least 4.1% of the defendants sentenced to death in the United States are innocent. This reveals that the number, and a similar report also revealed that the number of innocent people is likely more than double than the number of those exonerated and freed from death row, meaning there are still some innocents who are in death row waiting their sentences. And this leads to for my inherency claim that 31 states and the federal government still utilize the system, the broken and harmful system of the death penalty. What was that?
You're out of time.
Oh, okay. Well,
Doesn't your timer say you're out of time also?
my timer locked.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'd have given you time signals, but you look like you were timing yourself. No, you stopped because we're already late.